You join us today for our virtual event on the IT channel and the accelerated post-pandemic shift to digital. We do hope everyone's hanging in there, and we appreciate you taking the time to be with us today. And for those that I haven't met, my name is Brent Boswell, and I'm our Senior Vice President of our international operations based here in London. So over the past several months, we've been conducting a series of virtual events across the globe looking at how IT buy-in priorities have shifted and how marketing and sales teams have responded to these shifts. But we're really excited because today is going to be our first channel-focused event. And the goal of today is to really help you understand the changing shifts and priorities in the IT channel and how you can help your channel partners best engage with IT buyers and buying teams as they conduct digital research. So looking at today's agenda and kicking us off will be Simon Quick, the longstanding editor of Microscope. And Simon's in a unique position because he's speaking with channel leaders on a daily basis, and he's got a really good perspective on what the channel's done, how it's adapting to all these changing shifts. So Simon's going to be sharing a series of interviews he's conducted and elaborate on what he's seeing with the channel currently. Next, I'll be looking at how digital marketing can help the channel navigate through these shifts. I mean, it'll become clear, and it's probably no surprise to you all that digital's been at the forefront given the lack of physical events, which have predominantly been the primary way channel has generated leads. So we'll talk about how you can use digital marketing. And then last, our senior customer success manager, Lucy Bastar, is going to provide some tips on how the channel can sell more effectively in a digital environment. And this is really timely because we have our 10th annual media consumption research that was just conducted in July. And Lucy's going to be talking you through questions we ask IT leaders on how they prefer to be followed up from sales teams. So I think it's really timely and recent information. So again, I appreciate you all joining us today. We're in a changing landscape on a daily basis, and we hope today will provide a clearer picture on what's going on in the IT channel. So before we kick it off with Simon, I'll turn it over to Byron Seifert, our moderator for today's events, to go over some tips. Byron, you're on mute.
Apologies.
No problem.
Just a few things for everyone today as we go through today's event. Please post your questions in the Q&A environment, and we will go through them and have Simon try and answer as many as he possibly can in today's event. We're going to ask him questions, a couple of them throughout his presentation as well as the end of his presentation. And then if we have time at the end of the hour and a half, we're going to come back to questions for him again if there are still some remaining. You're more than welcome to ask him in the Q&A. You're also more than welcome to chat with me. I'm under TechTarget moderator as well as under Byron Seifert for TechTarget. Either one will get to Simon. A few other things. So throughout the presentation, we'll be using the polling feature here. It will look like this. It's anonymous. We will not be recording your specific answer, but we would really appreciate if you would answer the questions as it will really help the presenters as they're going through and making some points in today's presentation. So it'll just be a pop-up window answer, and then we'll show you the results as well so you can have them. Post-show, just very quick, we will be sharing the final presentation for everyone, so do not worry. We will also be sharing the video of this webinar for you. And in addition, Brent's going to review it, but we're just going to send some best practices kit as well with some additional information to help you in your change to digital marketing. So we will close with some more information on that. But for now, I am going to turn this over to Simon, who will take control of my screen, and he will be presenting.
Brilliant, thank you, Byron, and good morning, everybody. Thanks so much for joining us today. I know it's been an incredibly strange time, and the idea of today is to help you succeed even more throughout that. So, hold on. Right. So I just wanted to start by explaining for those, and hopefully there's not many of you, but for those of you who don't know who Microscope are, just to give you some context of where we're coming from. We were launched in 1982. Because of that date, we're the longest established channel publication. We emerged when people like Northumbria and West Coast started to establish distribution in the UK, and the channel started to become a real thing. Our main emphasis is that we are trying to help identify where the channel can succeed, where the channel, to be frank, can make money, and how the channel can survive some of the threats and the challenges. But when we started, it was totally different because we had a role just informing channel on what was happening. Now, of course, in an age of LinkedIn groups and vendor portals, which have had millions spent on them, our role has slightly changed. And so our position now is much more around giving you useful information that will help drive your business. Hence why we're doing today, because people need information right now more than ever. As you can imagine, because we're looking at the channel, we cover a wide range of topics, from enterprise hardware, networking, comms, right through to some of the born in the cloud players, and obviously the shift towards MSPs and everything as a service. So that's just to give you a context of where we are. We have a website which we post content on daily, which you can come and read. And there's also a monthly digital magazine, which is well worth signing up for as well. So please do get involved. If you're not a reader in that way, please do. So what I wanted just to do was start, before we get to where we are now, I just wanted to start with looking at where were we. So if you think about where the channel came in to the beginning of this year, we were coming in on the back of at least 3 or 4 good strong years. I've been at Canalis Channel Forums a couple of years ago where their president, Steve Brazier, stood up and said the channel's having the best time it's had for a decade. I've been writing about things like the Global Technology Distribution Council, who equally have said that distribution has made huge investments and has now improved its relationship with vendors and resellers. And so they were set for another year of growth. So at the beginning of the year, and this is information that we got from talking to buyers, it was going to be another year, to be honest, of probably strong growth. Customers were spending on cybersecurity and risk management, network infrastructure services, cloud services, and people were looking at increasing budgets. Digital transformation, if you're looking for an umbrella term to explain what was happening, was driving nearly all of that. And so most people started in January thinking, here we go, if we get it right, and don't get me wrong, if you don't get it right, there's not growth for you there. But if we get it right, it's going to be another good year. We've had good years and we're going to come into it. Look at people as an example. I'm picking them out. Softcat, here's a company that had continually pleased investors, continually shown quarter-on-quarter growth. So we were dealing with a channel that was in a strong place. But that was at the start of the year. What were customers looking at? Well, modernization, digital transformation. The first thing obviously there is to say, hey, you've got legacy infrastructure, we've got to do something about that. People were very worried about security. As you'll see, that's become even more important, but this is where people were at that stage. We heard more and more and more in the second half of last year around customer experience. And that was going to become increasingly important this year. That's what everybody was expecting. And then we were looking at other things around app development, the way that companies sold their services internally. And there were other things to get excited about. I mean, 5G was coming. A lot of people were extremely excited about that. That was seen as an opportunity to encourage infrastructure upgrades. And like I say, security was just ever present. The threats weren't going down. So we were having opportunities identified there. But then, of course, COVID came, coronavirus, and the world changed, and it changed rapidly. We started to chart a decline in IT spending, or at least the intention. There's a great deal of uncertainties about what will happen. People talking about, U-type recessions, V-type recessions, bounce backs, delayed bounce backs. No one quite knows. So again, we went from talking about growth, people saying, okay, at least 1% in IT spending, to suddenly talking about huge negatives. I would say that from a channel perspective, the channel maintained business as usual and has done for as long as it could. And I think that helped the channel immensely when people started to go into these shock reactions. Particularly the lockdown had a big impact. Engineers were no longer allowed to go onto customer sites. And so we have had, there's no doubt the channel has had major challenges. But I think the key thing here is it's just the speed with which this happened. We were looking quite happy in January, getting a little bit more worried in February, reading more and more reports, and then bang, you know, mid-March, suddenly it's getting very, very serious, and then we're all in lockdown. So I think it's been very, very quick. And of course, the hopes are that as we come into a bit more of a new normal, it might be just as quick in some cases coming out of it. So I just want to look at what the channel did. So if you think about that first phase, and I'm talking probably March to June, what did the channel do? People talk about it being phase one. Well, the key thing here is that the channel reacted positively. The channel focused on customers. One of the phrases I've heard, which I like, is it connected the unconnected. So the channel went out and it did everything it could to help customers who were scrambling, to help staff do home working, who were worried about security vulnerabilities, didn't have the licenses to cover those staff who were working remotely. So the channel went out and it did some amazing things. From a product point of view, we saw huge surges in sales of mobile computing, along with telecoms, components and accessories. I mean, just to give you an example, web cameras saw their sales increase by 158%. And I had people telling me that they were dusting down old stock and they couldn't believe it was in demand, but that was happening. We had home workers, we had people being schooled at home. So headsets, microphones, all had a huge increase. Then we had some vendors supporting the channel by giving the channel free licenses, which they could take out. The channel did a lot itself as well, though. So the channel offered some customers flexible payment terms. Some managed service providers decided to look at the monthly bundle they offered customers and trim that down to help give people who were having to deal with budget concerns, give them a little bit more flexibility. So we saw some real action there. The quote I've got here from Jason Howes, that came in March on MSP Day, which is towards the end of March, and it was a weird time. He was saying in difficult times, it's a real opportunity for MSPs to step up. And I have to say that MSPs, resellers, VARs, system integrators, they did step up. I've had several vendors on the phone to me describing their partners as heroes during this crisis. I mean, I can give you some examples. We had SCC who said that they would step in and they would develop and then help maintain the NHS PPE training website. There was a story I was told about Spanish staff in Logicalis who spent 36 hours almost non-stop helping a Spanish hospital get its data center ready for COVID. And these were heroic actions. And I think that a lot of the channel talk about we need to be the trusted advisor. And the vast majority have become that now because of their actions during the lockdown. And we have seen people go the extra mile on a regular basis. And I think, speaking as someone who's been covering the channel for 25 years, it makes you proud, to be honest, to be part of this. So that was phase one reaction from the channel. Phase one reaction from the vendors, well, they had to move quite quickly. You've got partners who are saying, we don't know what's going on. We don't know what's going to happen in terms of our revenue. So the immediate thing was you saw flexible finance, you saw some of the big players, so the Dells of this world, the Microsofts, the HPs, the people who have a finance arm, start to encourage their resellers to get involved with that and say to them, look, maybe you haven't needed to use finance before, but now may be the opportunity and the time to do that. We had more access to MDF funds. People didn't have to jump through so many hoops and hurdles to get that. We had vendors offering customers via the channel free trials, extended offers on software. So some people saying you don't have to pay for 60 days, some people saying for 90 days. Just bear in mind, this was at the very beginning when nobody knew quite how long this would last. We were all hoping it would just be a few weeks. So they really stepped up. The other thing is that they started to look at the program requirements. Of course, partners have to meet certain requirements to stay at the tier levels, platinum, gold, silver, and quite wisely, people started to look at that and they started to either suspend those until next year or just suspend them and let's see what happens. To give you an example there, Cisco was saying at their partner event a few weeks ago that they made 25 changes to the partner program between the 18th of March and July, mainly in 4 areas: to protect certifications and specializations, support liquidity and cash flow, expand digital selling, which is obviously the theme of today, and to safeguard partner rewards. So the vendors have moved. They did an awful lot. This is a quote here from Microsoft. This was very early on in the pandemic, and she was saying, look, it's important for you to know at this moment that we're listening to you and we're helping. I was talking to Dell yesterday because they've just hired a new global channel chief, and they were telling me that the first thing Michael Dell did was he emailed partners and customers and said, we're here to help. So I think that was the attitude. And I think there was an understanding and an expectation that if you didn't get it right, you would be in real trouble. Let's be blunt. People like Tim Martin at Wetherspoons and Richard Branson, there were some villains which emerged in this lockdown because of the way they treated their staff and the way that they quite clearly only cared about profits rather than staff and customers. The other big thing that vendors did was they stepped up training. And I think that's been a really important thing because a lot of resellers, those who've kept their engineers on, who've not furloughed them, said to them, this is your opportunity to get trained up. You can't go to customer sites, it's not allowed, so get training. So we saw training increase, we saw vendors adapt. I was talking to 8x8 the other day and they said that they had taken what would have been training for a physical on-site format and they had put it in 45-minute chunks, put it on video and allowed resellers and the channel to consume it at their own pace and their own time. So those were changes. Again, to give you an example, this also comes from Cisco, but at their partner conference, Josie Van Dyke, their Vice President of Partner Operations for the partner organisation, talks about its black belt training program and said that if you look at the number of training hours consumed in the month of May, which tripled from March, they had 35,000 learning hours, which equates to almost 4 years of training consumed in 1 month. So this was really, really big. And obviously money, MDF, specializations, that was important, but reaching out to people who suddenly found that they had time on their hands and giving them the training was a big, big thing. And most vendors, I have to say, stepped up and did really, really well and supported their partners positively through all these changes. Again, one of the quotes I got yesterday from Bill Scannell at Dell was, he said, I told the team when COVID really started to hit, the partners and customers will judge us in 5 to 10 years on how we deal with them today. And I think that is incredibly true. And I have heard resellers have said to me that some of the decisions that were made by vendors will influence their partnerships going forward into the new normal. So I think from a vendor perspective and a channel perspective, phase 1, let's not gloss over it. It was a lot of panic, a lot of reaction, but the channel, which is an absolute master of evolving to customer needs, I would say has done it again. So going in to what that meant for, just on a personal level, what that meant to somebody like us, You could see that the readership has gone up, which is wonderful. I'd like to believe that's all because of me. But people are looking for information, they're looking for support. You can see the topics on the right there. These are the areas that the channel and the vendors have had to very quickly move to say, hey, look, you know, take collaboration as an example. We all know hundreds and hundreds of % increases in the use of Microsoft Teams, the use of Zoom. People who had before had complete resistance to video conferencing are now using it every day. People are allowing their dogs to come into videos, their kids. As somebody said to me yesterday, we don't work from home, we live at work. And it's been a massive cultural shift. So you can see what it's meant. There's been a scramble to react to customers, but there's been a scramble to say, are we the channel doing the right thing? Are we selling the right tools? Are we supporting customers in the right way? And as you can see, that has equated to, and I'm sure Microscope isn't alone, Computer Weekly, our sister title, from a user and end user perspective, the IT departments, we've seen exactly the same there. So we've seen IT departments, there's a real hunger for knowledge. What's going on? What's happening? Am I doing the right thing? Am I investing in the right areas? So that's been how it's played out from my point of view. How has it worked?
Simon, you mentioned on some of the trainings that have taken place. In your perspective, how has that gone since the lockdown? You can't do physical training. It's all Zoom. You know, feedback you're hearing, is that going well? How do they compare it to previously? Any insights you can share on that? Yeah, sure. Well, the insights I've had back from that is it seems to be going very, very well. Online has really been in demand. I mean, to be honest, again, step back pre-COVID, and one of the biggest demands that the channel had of its vendors was training, support, enablement tools. And that has just been accelerated. COVID has accelerated quite a lot of things, but that's been a huge thing. I think the interesting thing will be what happens next, because obviously some people will like doing physical training. Some people, again, it's just a cultural thing. Some people like the idea of I'm going off for the day, I'm going to a vendor's site, I'm going to be given orange juice and a croissant, and I'm going to get some training, I'm going to be given some feedback there and then, and I'm going to then drive back to see my boss and tell the rest of the staff how intelligent I am. Some people will really enjoy still doing that, but I think for a lot of people, the idea of bite-sized online training where you are in control, you can monitor your own progress, I think vendors are going to have to provide both. But going back to that Cisco example, the idea that you had 4 years training at the equivalent of in just 1 month shows you just, and they're not isolated, it just shows you how much there's been an appetite and demand for knowledge, to be honest with you. So yeah, we're seeing a lot of that at the moment, and I think it will continue. I don't think the channel will go back. I think going forward, you know, it's very difficult to predict what will be the lasting legacies. I'm going to come on to a few of them in a bit, but certainly I think training and different patterns of consumption will be one of them. Yeah. Yeah. So going on, I talking about that collaboration. I think one of the biggest changes has been that face-to-face has moved online. The channel is all about people. It's all about moving the business, keeping the dialogue going, knowing your partners, account managers. Simon, you're breaking up a little bit just now, so I don't know if it's maybe you could try to get a little. You know, we don't need to see you so up close and personal, but yeah, you're breaking up there a bit. Oh, okay. Sorry. That's much better. That's better. Okay, sorry. So what I would say is in terms of going back a little bit to the vendor reaction, one of the biggest headaches, challenges for the vendors has been the virtual events or just events in general. Most people in the channel have a full calendar of events, both shows, partner conferences, road shows,
training, seminars, all of those came to a grinding halt. And I mean, this quote from SAP sums it up: well, this wasn't our plan A. They're very excited about the opportunities and engagement. So I think a lot of that has happened again. That's happened very, very quickly. We've seen a great deal of innovation in that space. So we have seen people trying to do events, trying to make them interesting, trying to make them fun. But I think this has been one of the big consequences for vendor and partner and customer, but let's just talk about vendor and partner for the moment. Vendor and partner communication, it's been a real challenge. Now, I'll go on to some examples in a minute, but the vendors have been quite innovative. Distribution has been very innovative. And everybody I speak to has said that levels of communication and collaboration are higher now than they have ever been. The key word there, though, has been transparency. So I think the channel has said to vendors, resellers have said to distributors, right now we're feeling isolated. We don't know what's quite going on with the market. We want to talk, we want to share, we want to learn. Please be transparent. So that's been one of the big themes. And I think those who have been successful have been those who have said, right, we're going to open up and make it fairly informal. We'll get some of our senior management on, and people will just shoot from the hip and tell you what's going on. I mean, I have been on numerous partner conferences. I've got to see the inside of most channel executives' homes now. I've got to see people, to be frank, in a much more relaxed format. They're at home. They are doing a talk to partners and they're feeling relaxed. I mean, I watched an Ingram Micro Cloud conference where the guy changed into a t-shirt after every slide, which was fantastic, amusing, and it kept everybody thinking, how many t-shirts has he got? And can he get into it before the next slide flips? So I think there have been some really interesting things. And so again, like the training, this is probably going to be a permanent legacy of COVID. Just to put some numbers on that, because we go out and we talk to people in our media consumption study and we say, what are you doing in terms of trying to get in touch with people and customers? And as you can see, the overwhelming majority are just saying, I don't really do face-to-face. Some are saying that they might go to the events that are most important to them, but to be honest, even in that situation, the choice has been taken out of their hands. And then that 10%, I'd love to know how they're doing it, because most events have just been dropped. Even Amazon's big event towards the end of the year, which it looked like it might be going ahead, they revealed it won't be, and it will be a 3-week virtual thing instead. So I think you can see the impact, and I think the interesting thing will be, as we go forward and we go more into the new normal, will people be comfortable going to events? Will people, it's not so much the event, because of course, you know, we can go in and we can have our hand sanitizer. If we have to wear masks, we will wear masks. It's more the getting there, particularly if you've got to use public transport. So I think this will weigh heavy on those who look at doing events, and it will weigh heavy on their mind about what do we do as we go forward. It has meant, let's be honest, it has meant that there's been a shift towards digital marketing, and there's a real challenge there. I had one example, I'm not going to name because it would be incredibly unfair, but I was talking to one distributor who said that they'd done a campaign with a vendor and they generated 200 leads. They went back after 2 months and 180 hadn't been followed up by the channel. So I think, you know, this idea about digital marketing it's not going to be just a given. Even before COVID hit, there were channel events where digital marketing was a big theme, or just marketing in general. I'll give you an example. So last September, Datto held its partner conference for MSPs, and one of the main thrusts of that was talking about sales and marketing. Christian Nageli, their director of EMEA strategy, said to me at the time, look, a lot of MSPs don't have a sales operation. They don't have a marketing presence. A lot of the sales are driven by referrals and word of mouth. He said, and this was his quote, that is highly commendable as a model, but you are going to hit a growth ceiling. Well, you've hit that ceiling now because you can't go and speak to people. So we've really seen a shift towards things which are online, things that are innovative. I'll give you a few examples. The Exclusive Distribution Festival, which lasted a week, which had a quiz, a DJ, Rob Beckett, the comedian, loads of advice. And the whole theme was just, we're here to help, how can we help? They were having 200 to 300 people turn up to that. So that, again, and I will touch on this later, but some really interesting things were going on. Let me get the next. Yeah, so this is my point. HPE, they had more than 100,000 registrations for Discover. Cisco had more than 100,000 registrations for its partner event. I think that was close to 120,000. A lot of these people, to be frank, I can't remember the exact figure, but one vendor did tell me huge numbers of these people were fresh, new. They had never come to an event before. Well, of course, if you take away the barrier of having to fly to Vegas or Florida, the barrier of having to take almost a week out of the office, there's been a real hunger for information. Again, going back to that Exclusive Networks Festival, 200 plus at each session. We've seen some real innovation in terms of going back to that, talking about transparency. TechData running its community reseller lunches every week. And again, an idea which came from one of the team, which got the blessing of senior management, which just flew and ended up having people like David Watts and the senior management come in on those sessions because the reseller numbers and the demand for more information was there. Really interesting. Again, when I spoke to TechData about that, they were talking about keeping that going. So this is really interesting. Canalys, those of you who are lucky to go to the Canalys channel forums every year in Barcelona will know that they cap the event strictly at 1,000 attendees to keep the quality there, to keep the engagement levels, because it's a very good networking event. Well, guess what? This year it's virtual. Lots of people will be able to enjoy that for the first time. And then going back to the MDF, it's all well and good talking about MDF, but we've seen real change there. We've seen Juniper talking to me about, I was talking to their guy there saying he'd been there 18 years and he'd never seen more money going on MDF. And Veritas saying to me, we want to have a white glove service for leads, for partners. So again, this isn't just about, okay, hey guys, we're going to have to go virtual because we have no choice. You can see what's happened. It's been a success. People have made it work. It's been, in terms of registration numbers, in terms of attendance at sessions, it's been good. And the old rules don't apply. I'll give you an example, a live example right now. I'm talking to you from the boardroom at TechTarget's UK office, where we traditionally do roundtables. And I'm talking to you on the 19th of August. If you had said to me in January, hey, we want to do a roundtable this year in August, it would have just been a no-go. What, you mean in the height of holiday season, no one's there? The old rules no longer apply. So I think there's lots of food for thought there.
So Simon, let's envision a day where we're clear of this and back in safe environment.
Yeah.
Where do you think we go? What does HP Discover look like in 2022? What does Cisco Live look like in 2022? Just in your...
I think it's going to be very, very hard not to have, I guess the phrase would be a hybrid event. I think you've got a choice. If you want to keep the event, like Canalys, I'm sure will snap back into the 1,000 because there's this sense of exclusivity, value, and you're worth it, you've earned it. If I was Antonio Neri at HPE, I'd probably be thinking, what's my priority? Well, my priority is to get to the biggest audience possible. It would be lovely to have resellers who have never touched me, who might dip into sessions and think, actually, there's a proposition we might want to take on. So I would say, look, maybe you put pressure on your platinum partners and your whatever your titanium, whatever the highest level is, and say you should come because we're going to be doing sessions around it just for you. But I would like to think, I mean, don't get me wrong, Microsoft Worldwide Partner Conference has been streamed for the last 3 or 4 years, and I've not, well, I've not been invited to go physically, but I've watched that. I've been invited to watch the stream, and that's been fantastic. So I think we will get into a world where maybe the challenge for vendors is to say, okay, we stream the keynotes, but let's now start to look at investing in the technologies to stream the side sessions, some of the seminars. And it's really their choice. Don't get me wrong, I don't think you necessarily would get 100,000 plus in the new normal because people are back in their offices, but you need to weigh it up. So I would say maybe Discover 2022 would be a hybrid event, and if that's successful, it would remain. If it doesn't, if the digital element of the audience isn't huge, then potentially we'd go back to how it was. But I think it's going to take a few years to sound it out and see what's right. Yeah. So just to give you a quick idea, again, the advantage of being in a publishing family that includes Computer Weekly is that we can get an insight into what the customers are saying, and these are some of the post-pandemic priorities for users. They're talking about the fact that they can't resist being digital anymore. We have seen, this gets attributed around to everybody, but I think it was Satya Nadella at Microsoft who said there'd been 2 years worth of digital transformation in 2 months because of COVID. So I think it's become patently clear to customers that the old ways of working just can't continue. Again, just before Discover, Antonio Neri did a press session where he said that HPE is expecting 50% of staff at its customers to remain remote working. So I think the old rules, it's impossible to say exactly what will happen, but certainly you can say that the old rules will no longer apply. Why is that good for the channel? Because look, what do they want? Agility, responsiveness, resilience. What can the channel give in absolute spades? All of those things. All of the things that they're looking for help with, the channel has been moving towards anyway over the past few years. The channel is ready for consumption of that as a service. So, and I'm going to obviously finish on a high note, but you should be getting from me already the theme, which is the channel survived, but the channel is strong and in a good position. So I think when you look at customers, the channel is in a great place to meet those needs. So let's just talk a little bit about the new normal. What's going on? What are the opportunities? Let's first of all look at, for resellers and distributors, what does it mean? Okay, so the world might never quite be the same. So that does pose some opportunities for the channel. There's been a huge acceleration in cloud adoption, remote working, and calls for increased security. Great quote here from BitTitan, who did a piece of research recently about how MSPs had fared in COVID. And Grady is saying partners can help their customers navigate through this difficult time. And they certainly can. So we have seen big impacts on anything to do with remote working. We're now seeing, I guess in the second wave, what we're now starting to see is that having made that reaction, customers are now starting to say, well, I want to make that work. So an example I got from a hardware vendor was, okay, you had a 12-inch monitor in lockdown. You're now thinking, do you know what? Life would be easier with a 27-inch. You had an old laptop, which has done the job, but you're now thinking, I want something that will last. Likewise, your webcam might have been a bit flaky. So we have seen, we've gone from reaction to now, I guess, reflection and more of a strategy. But if the channel can deliver what people are looking for, then there's huge opportunities. A lot of talk at the moment about the hybrid office and the opportunities around there, both on a hardware front. So you've got people, the headset manufacturers like Poly having a big partner session on that recently. Networking, those resellers got big opportunities. This whole move to the edge. So over the lockdown, you've seen people like Sonic Wall traditionally known for security suddenly roll out a load of networking products because they understand that it's at the edge. Schneider Electric, again, huge partner program pushing around the edge. So we've seen a lot of that. Don't forget some of the things that were happening before COVID, like the ISDN switch off in 2025, they're still happening, they're still coming. And give an example on that front, I spoke to Gavin Jones, Director of Channel at BT Wholesale, and he said that they had seen more acceleration in the first 3 months of COVID, moving away from ISDN, than they'd seen in the last 3 years. So again, some of the pitches and plays that the channel have had in the playbook for a while, those are still relevant, they're still important. Another side note is I had a chat with Epson the other week, and they're talking about green printing sustainability, and their view is that sustainability has not been impacted, the argument for it has not been impacted by COVID. So again, those resellers who've made huge strides to make sure that they've got a strong green pitch, that's not been in vain, in the way that after the crash in 2008, green went out the window. So there's lots and lots of things that are opportunities there for the channel. And to, you know, a shameless plug, if you go on Microscope on the website, you'll see them every day. We're writing about them, we're writing about the research that's coming out, we're writing about the way that people are reacting to it. So that's from a channel point of view. Just flipping to a vendor point of view, we've talked a little bit about this. The pandemic has highlighted just where most of them have added value for their partners. Training, finance, and increased communication have all been strong. Those are likely to stay. Great quote here from Ed Baker at McAfee. One thing is crystal clear: the relationship between the customer, partner, and vendors, I'd say, has to operate differently. So it has to. Bill Scannell at Dell told me yesterday, we are seeing this huge flock to quality and seeing customers and partners want to do business with fewer strategic partners that are going to be there for the long road. So Dell, I had this call with Dell. It was to introduce Rola, who's replacing Joyce Mullen as worldwide channel head. But Bill Scannell said that they'd spoken to their 50, 60 global top partners last week, and the mood was incredibly upbeat. They know it's a consolidating market. Let's face it, laptops and PCs, but they believe that there's a huge channel opportunity there to go for. The other thing I would just say here in terms of vendor implications, it's having implications with channel partner programs. I know I mentioned that Cisco had made changes, but just take a look at, for instance, HP Amplify, which was announced last month. This is a partner program which has got digital at its heart. Christoph Schwell, who's their Chief Commercial Officer, said that the firm recognised now that 92% of buyers preferred to buy online, and a similar number were doing their research online. And it wanted to encourage resellers to get to the buyers, get to them online. So Amplify is all about sharing data. So HP partners will be sharing data about customers to make sure that the offer HP recommends they pitch is the best one. This is where it's going. I mean, okay, they were working on that before COVID, but it's accelerated this idea that digital is the key to everything, and that's where customers are moving. So you have to move to meet them there, okay? I mean, there's a quote here from him I'll just share. He said, what is really at the heart of collaboration is data. Data becomes an additional currency to define the relationship that HP has with its partners. So if you think about it, long-lasting legacy will be probably hybrid events. It will be more communication, obviously more training, more online training. But as we go forward and we look into 2021, 2022, we're going to see people change their partner programs. And what was just a tick in the box, which is, hey, we can do this, this, and this. And of course, digital is now going to flip. And I would expect digital marketing to become the primary push that vendors want their channel to work with. So I think that's where we're going to go and see a lot of change in the next, well, certainly in the next year. So I just want to sort of wrap it up and just say that from my point of view, it's been a very difficult one because no one wants to be seen to be benefiting from a pandemic. It's been horrible. Thousands of people have died, thousands have lost their jobs. It's been absolutely horrible. But the channel has survived largely, and the channel has done a sterling effort supporting people. These are the quotes I just wanted to point out about the MDF. So Sander over at Juniper saying, when they talk to the partner base, particularly at the moment, it's how can you help us with lead generation? They've shifted a lot of attention to the virtual lead generation campaigns. And Jamie over at Veritas, who talked about the white glove service, about the fact that it's no longer good enough just to say to somebody, hey, here's a lead. It's got to be detailed. And hey, if this isn't what HP's ambition is with Amplify, I don't know what it is. But we've seen a lot. But I wanted just to leave you with a great quote from Susan Bowen, who's CEO and president at Aptum, who said to me, I don't think any organization is the same now. I don't think any of us as people are the same. We have looked at our lives in different ways, living in a pandemic and living in our own environment where we have to make adjustments every day. This is bigger than the channel, obviously. This is huge, but I think it's clear that the vendors have recognized that there's an acceleration to digital, and they want to work with their partners to support that. And the ones that are the most successful will be those that get digital quickly and do it right. So that's really what I wanted to say to you. And I just, thank you so much for tuning in today. It's a privilege being able to talk to you.
Hi, Simon. We do have a few questions that have come through, and we have a couple minutes right now to answer.
Sure.
So first off, following on your comment on vendor consolidation, will this be something that channel partners can drive for their customers, or will it be more vendor-led?
Sorry, what was it? Vendor-led. It's a difficult one. I think at the moment a lot is coming from the vendors, and I think that understandably the partners have enough on their plates at the moment. So probably I would say vendor-led at the moment on that front. But the partners can do a lot to shout about for themselves. But I would say probably vendor-led.
An additional question, can you explain what the white glove service is, please? You mentioned it a couple times.
Yeah, so the white glove service it's this idea that, I guess to stick with the restaurant analogy, it's the idea that I'm not just going to a drive-through window in McDonald's and being given 100 leads and being told to enjoy my meal. I'm going to a restaurant and I'm getting somebody come over and say, I know this is going to work for you. So the idea of the white glove service is that it is something that has been tailored to that partner. The lead has depth. So we're not just saying somebody put a business card in a bowl to win an iPad at a trade show. This has got real depth. And so, I mean, it was Veritas who he coined the phrase, the white glove service to me. But what I understood by that was that Veritas, with its top partners, is going to sit down and say, we're not just going to give you leads, we're going to give you really thought through. And again, when you look at what HP is looking to do with Amplify, HP is saying to partners, if you can give us the data we need to feedback what you're selling, what you're pitching, what your customers are saying, then we can work with you to make sure that we give you the best information and the best leads. So I think on that front, you'll sort of see people move more and more to this idea of you've got to give people, particularly now when they cannot go out and they cannot generate leads for themselves, you have to give people the information they need.
And I just have one more question before Brent starts his portion of the presentation. I think it leads really well. How good a job are vendors and channel companies doing at collaborating around marketing? Are they talking about the same things when they say they want to work on digital marketing?
Probably not, because, you know, the channel's fantastic for, you know, what does digital transformation mean to me? It doesn't mean to anybody else. Cloud, likewise. I think there has been a real push, though, to encourage people just to work out that they have to get digital, in a sense of you have to get online, you have to be out on the social media channels, you have to have a website. So I think there's been a push in that sense. There's been workshops. Again, I go back to Dell. They were doing this really early on. They were doing workshops around digital marketing. I think obviously it means different things to different partners, and it depends on, to be frank, on the resources of a partner. Do they have somebody who can drive that for them? Going back to my Datto example, we know that a lot of MSPs don't. So I think probably what will happen is vendors will come up and say, here is a template which you can take forward. But behind the scenes, we are encouraging you to develop your own skills. I just think the fundamental is you've got to ask yourself, once customers can get back in their offices, once customers can turn up at trade shows, will they stop doing what they've been doing? And the chances are no. So that buying process, that information gathering process is going to be online, and the channel has to meet them there.
Thank you so much. We have a couple additional questions I'm going to hope to ask at the end if we have time.
Okay.
But now I will turn it over to Brent. Thanks,
Great.
Simon.
Thanks a lot, Simon. It's a lot to pack in. And I'm glad you ended on some of the positive high notes from the channel. I mean, you know, you can only play the hand you're dealt. And, you know, we've all been dealt a pretty poor hand in 2020, but I think to see how the channel's responded so quickly is a success story through all this. And it's really positive to see. So I'll touch on, like, you know, how digital marketing, I think Simon summed it up best, is that it can mean a lot of things to a lot of people, especially when you get to channel, which they predominantly have used more physical events in the past. So we want to share some of the ways that we're helping organizations leverage digital marketing to navigate these shifts. And there's been a lot of shifts we've seen. I mean, Simon touched on early in his presentation, you know, when we looked at the start of 2020, the big technology drivers were digital transformation. That was pretty much on everyone's roadmap for adoption and implementation. COVID just accelerated that. And Simon mentioned it, that some of these companies were doing projects that were planned over years and weeks or months. And we noticed that a lot, especially in sectors like retail, education, and government. We've seen a massive amount of research in these areas to help respond to the challenges that COVID's brought to, you know, their organizations. And here's an example of the digital arm of the NHS on how they had to quickly adapt and respond to the digital requirements needed. But at TechTarget, you know, we produce a lot of content, and, you know, we look at who is reading this content. And in this example, we know the Cabinet Office, Network Rail, Beg & Co., amongst hundreds of other companies read this article. And that's an interesting signal for us, because in our world, you know, content consumption does indicate a user or a company's current interest. So, you know, when we look at, you know, content like that, you know, it's interesting, but I think when it becomes really interesting is when we see Network Rail continue their research and start looking at project evaluation content. So this is an article we wrote on our Search CIO site, 5 digital transformation strategies embracing the new normal. You know, it was written in June, it's timely, it's not quick hitting. This is, you know, we won't go through the whole article, but this is really in-depth content that is highlighting and discussing a very complex challenge. Again, these projects aren't easy to implement. They're usually researched over many months, and it takes just as long to implement. So we're trying to provide our users with the knowledge they need to make these projects run as smooth as possible. And for our users, you know, we provide them clear next steps. So, you know, we clearly say you can go on and read the IT Thought Leader's Guide to the Future of Work. And then on the left-hand side, you have different articles you can read. So we're providing this content for our users, and it is free of charge. At some point, we're going to ask that they register to become members. And then that registration gets them exclusive access to the content we're writing across our network of 120 different websites. And in order to gain access, you have to go through all of your information and opt in to receive information from our partners on relevant information. And once you do that, and over the 20+ years history of TechTarget, we've registered more than 20 million users globally, and over 5 million in EMEA. But we start to get clear signals on what people care about. And we use that information to better serve them with additional content. So if Simon Quick was an IT director and he's reading digital transformation content, we're going to email Simon relevant digital transformation content. That helps him in his research. It also starts to allow us to be able to understand what accounts are showing real clear signals of a project underway, given the types of research that's being done. And I can tell you, over the last 2 months, in EMEA, we've had over 9,000 accounts that have been doing some form of research around digital transformation. These are unique accounts, and obviously not all of these are equal. Some of these accounts have 30+ people doing research. They're consuming hundreds of articles around digital transformation. Some of these could be a small business with one person reading 1 or 2 articles. But we're looking at the content that they're consuming to understand which accounts are truly in market and which accounts are maybe just reading some news or are trying to get a better knowledge of a particular technology. So we know Network Rail is highly active based on the members that are doing the research. And we're one of the ways we're helping our clients from a digital standpoint is we're providing that information about everything Network Rail is doing. And then we provide it in this format. So you can see Network Rail around the topic of digital transformation. And they had 10 TechTarget prospects. So those are 10 registered members that have gone through this process. They've opted in. We know they're active on the topics of digital transformation. We know their name, their title, their phone, their email, and their location. We also provide this LinkedIn handle. Simon mentioned there's a lot of social campaigns in market, so you might want to click on this to see if you have a connection with any of these or want to send them an email. But you'll notice, with a lot of projects, you're going to see a wide variety of titles. Infrastructure, solutions architect, you got a strategic analyst, head of digital business platforms, head of information management. These buying teams are all doing research, and we're trying to provide this insight into real time so our clients can make the most of it. So in addition, we're showing what topics they're interested in. So in Network Rail's case, digital transformation is the top one, data security, collaboration apps, application modernization. These are all topics that they're consuming the most content from on the TechTarget network of websites. And these are the vendors that they're actually downloading white papers and webinars and videos from. So again, if you go back to that example, that the white glove service from Veritas, Jamie was saying, I don't want to just provide our BDR team with just leads. I want to provide them with enriched intelligence about what these accounts and individuals are reading about. And this is what we share with our clients so they can have a more informed conversation. And the last bit we show is we partner with a company called HG Insights, and their whole business model is around understanding installed technologies. And we're going to show you what Network Rail has installed. And this could help your sales team, your channel partner, understand either a competitor they're up against or maybe a partner that they integrate particularly well with. All these are signals and insights that you can lead with to have a more informed conversation. I will say that Network Rail is a really large company. They're doing research around many different topics. If you wanted to see just specifically what they're doing around collaboration software, you'll notice a few things. It went from 10 people doing research to 6. And when we go down here, you're going to see Slack is now a vendor of interest. And we look at your top interests, they're all going to be around collaboration software. So again, it's, you know, digital marketing means a lot of things to a lot of people, but we know that when you make that first phone call and you send that first email, if it's not relevant to that end user, it's not going to get read. It's certainly not going to get, that voicemail is not going to get returned. And if you do get them on the phone, they're going to quickly get off if they don't feel the information is relevant. So we're providing this information for each individual account. And I mentioned we have at any one time 9,000 accounts doing research on digital transformation. Well, that's too many. And not all of those are relevant. Most of those aren't relevant right now. But each week we update this list of the top 200 accounts across EMEA, or if you only care about UK, we could look at just the UK market, the top 200 accounts that are doing research around digital transformation. And we're providing all of that insight that I showed for Network Rail across all of these accounts. And this is really impactful. This allows sales and marketing teams to go in and uncover new prospects, understand what their current customers are doing. And I did this before the call, but you could either integrate this data directly into Salesforce or Marketo, but you could export it too into a good old-fashioned Excel file, which I've done here. And you're going to see what the traditional like lead gen thing is, a bunch of names on the spreadsheet, but the benefit here is that you know these are active people doing research around the topics you care about. So you can see here, all of that data is put right into this Excel file. And with this week alone, we have 945 contacts from those top 200 accounts that are doing research. And you know, there's a lot of different ways you can leverage this data, but you know, passing this to your partner teams to follow up with is one way we're seeing clients take advantage of this. So sticking with that Network Rail example, there's a lot going on, and digital marketing is effective, but there is no silver bullet. It's difficult to get people's time and attention. And we wanted to look back at what Network Rail had been researching since lockdown. So we look back from March. We noticed there was, over that time, 14 active researchers that were TechTarget members that were doing many different activities. They were reading our editorial articles. They were downloading vendor content throughout this time. So, you know, if you know, in the old traditional way, if you pass on a lead to a channel partner in March, the likelihood that Network Rail is going to respond to that is slim to none. I mean, they're just early stage of their research. So it's about knowing when's the right time to engage with these accounts. And then when you engage, what do you say? And what do you do to get their interest so they'll take a meeting? And that's really the goal of digital marketing, is to get your sales teams, your channel sales teams, an opportunity to have a meeting with someone. So how can we help? There's a few ways that TechTarget helps our clients. One, we have a service where we're monitoring activity, just like you're seeing here at Network Rail. And we will call into these accounts on behalf of Computer Weekly and confirm an active project. So in this case, we confirmed there's a hybrid cloud project at Network Rail. We knew that because we spoke to an individual. They confirmed there was a project within 12 months. Then they went on to tell us about the top requirements of that project, who they have installed, and who they're considering. So these are channel-friendly lead offerings that you can pass on in either PDF or Excel form. But again, it starts with someone that's reading content on our websites. They register through that registration process. We phone into them. They confirm there's a project going on in the next 12 months, and they confirm who they're considering and what they have installed. And then we validate that data. So that's a very effective tool. And we do this, you know, I showed hybrid cloud and digital transformation. We're doing these across every major technology topic on an ongoing basis. Then we do good old-fashioned lead gen. This is probably the most common thing that's been done over time. And, you know, we built our business on doing digital lead gen. And it's still a very important part of what we provide our clients. So we will take your vendor content, co-branded content that you might have with a distie or an individual partner, and we will syndicate that and promote it to the users we know that are active. So again, on that network rail example, if we know there's 10 people that are actively doing digital transformation research and you have a piece of content on digital transformation, we're going to send an email to all of those people trying to get them to engage and download your content. And we do this at scale. We run almost 5,000 of these programs annually. Content is still the primary way people do research, you know, whether it be TechTarget editorial, analyst reports, or vendor collateral, but we're syndicating over 12,000 pieces of vendor content. And as you can see, we're delivering a lot of content downloads, over 1.4 million a year. And again, it all starts with that same process. Everything we do starts with someone has to come engage on our websites. They have to go through the registration process. Then they have to go in and click and download your piece of content. So this is another effective way to pass on leads to channel partners. The last thing is what I won't recap this in full detail, but it's that network rail example. You can either in the Veritas example, you could buy Priority Engine, have your own BDR team go in there and warm up the leads and then pass on to the appropriate channel partner. Or you could just export the data in Excel and then divvy it up amongst 5, 10 or so channel partners for them to engage with. I mean, I will say the channel has primarily used face-to-face events. So, you know, one of the things we've noticed is that, you know, channel sales teams aren't used to picking up the phone and calling in 10 times to a lead to get them to respond. So there's a lot of work and it needs to be done in that area, and we're going to provide some follow-up and some best practices, and Lucy's going to touch on that in just a few minutes. So in closing, you know, it's a challenging time. We know that overall there's less projects happening. We can see that from our own data, and we know the projects that are happening are more competitive, but there's still plenty of IT projects being planned, and that shouldn't be forgotten. It's just harder to get in on the short list. So how our customers are using intent, our good old-fashioned sales blitz sessions. Again, we do this at TechTarget every week. Our sales team, we have a topic and they spend 2 hours calling in to clients. And we do that. We recommend that a lot with our clients, BDR teams, our TM companies that take our data and on a specific topic like team collaboration, and they go out with a message each week where they're just making phone calls. And again, we know it's harder to get a hold of people on the phone, but people are still answering their phone, and we know that because we're seeing it firsthand with our calling sessions. Sales cadences, you know, this is something specifically designed for net new. So again, you put these users into an 8-10 step sales cadence where you're doing a series of phone, email, social touches over a 2 to 3 week period. And it's all around trying to get those net new prospects to engage and show interest and book a meeting. And once you get the meeting, that's the ultimate goal. Well, the ultimate goal is closing the deal, but from a marketing standpoint, you're trying to get your sales teams and your partner sales teams the opportunities for new meetings. Obviously, virtual events are really big now. Clients use our data to promote their own events. These bottom two are things that haven't historically been used a great deal with us, but we're seeing more and more of it, just given the fact that there's less deals out there, is surrounding open opportunities. You know, if a channel partner or your own sales team has an opportunity at 50% and you can share additional insights or additional people on that buying team that are doing research that will help them take that from a 70% opportunity to a close one, well, that's extremely valuable. And even more so in the churn reduction, you know, most of our marketing clients are responsible for driving net new, but you want to make sure you hold on to your current customers as much as possible. And I will mention that media consumption study that we've done, we're not sharing this slide today, but we ask around project consideration. We ask IT buyers to rank 1 to 7 what was most important versus least important. And the number 7, least important, was loyalty to a vendor, which was pretty shocking to us. So it's showing that if another vendor comes along and knows and has a technology that's a better fit, at least in the eyes of the buyer, or if they think that it's better suited for their environment, what they're telling us is they will move to that new solution with no issues at all. So I think having marketing start to think about how we can help mitigate that churn is really important. So again, big shifts happening in the channel, a lot of move to digital. These are some of the ways we're helping our clients. And we wanted to close the presentation with having Lucy share some insights into once you get this data, how to best follow up with it. So with that, I'll turn it over to Lucy.
So my name is Lucy. I'm a Senior Customer Success Manager at TechTarget. Sorry. And, oh, I cannot change the slide. Yes. So from April to July 2020, we fielded our annual media consumption study. It is a study we conduct to get end users, purchase buying patterns and engagement best practices for users. This year, the study was conducted during COVID 100%. We had 742 European respondents. And today I will be covering the sales engagement best practices for you. This is the first preview of a larger study. So if you'd like to have a further discussion with us, we are happy to share it with you. Just contact your account manager and we'll set up a meeting for you. So as Simon mentioned, pre-purchase research is done online, mostly with 60+% using search engine, technology vendor websites, independent publisher. And in fact, companies researching a significant tech purchase won't typically talk to a vendor rep until at least 3 to 6 months before the purchase. So today, everything is done online. And I can tell you that trade shows are done 30% and small face-to-face events are done 20% year on year from last year's study to this year's study due to COVID. So everything is happening online, and as it's been talked today by Simon and Brent, having marketing presence and being able to push your message through is really important as part of this discussion. And to further illustrate this point, end users that are researching online will screen calls from vendors that until they are ready to talk to them. So Simon highlighted that coronavirus has extended the need for digital engagement, and it is mentioned in the study that 58% of our users stated that they are staying away from face-to-face events and gathering information online instead. And an addition of 32% stated that they will cut back on some events attendance unless it's really important for them. So it is a total of 90% that would probably attend at least one event normally that are not. So given the pandemic, I don't think it's a surprise for anyone that people are not going to event right now, but it's important to realize that it leaves a huge gap with the thing that people are used to. And it is a big change from where it was. For you in the channel, when a significant part of your time was engaging at small face-to-face event and having a direct conversation, you need to find ways to you need to find ways online to advance that now more than ever. And you need to make the first connection work for you. You need to make your email and online engagement work for you. 82% of our users are saying to us that they would rather receive an unsolicited email rather than unsolicited phone calls or text message. And what you can see on the right side of the slide, it's an actual email that we are using with our customers. We are giving them insight to really make sure that those unsolicited emails are more catered to it. It is a format where you can easily input things, but as well a good idea of how you should be thinking moving forward. As you can see, it's just not a hello, comma, name type of email, but it's a looking at a granular detail and making sure that you are catching the attention. So this is where intent data can massively help with the process. You can include topical, install-based, research-related activity into your conversation so that you hit all the point of engagement for them. So in this template on the right side, you can fill in all the information that Brent showed you from Priority Engine. This is where you can fill in the segment, in this case, digital transformation, the industry, transportation, the topics interest, data security, cloud infrastructure security, machine learning, but also the vendor interest, like Rackspace and Dell. So people would rather be contacted via email, therefore they are more likely to engage with you first if you write them some good emails focusing on your specific solution. You need to be right on. It's important not to use the same email for all these different type of prospects, because let's be honest, leads are very hard to come by. And if you have all of this intelligence from Priority Engine, you need to use it effectively, and you want to reach out about your own specific solution. So the copy of the email, the copy of the email is really important, but the subject lines is essential. The best performing subject line also bring together relevance to the email and or showcase a case study. Some of the best practice for sales email engagement include making your subject line call to the user. You need to make sure that they understand that you are here to help. The subject line is there to bring the user into your email and help build brand awareness of your solution. You need to be as personable as you can. If you could mention the prospect first name, if you can mention his or her company, that would be even better. And in your email and in the subject line, it's also important to feature an offering, a piece of content, an asset that you want to highlight in your cadence, and it will get you the best response. And we know it from our study that what the user don't want to see in the subject line, they don't want the sales rep asking, when can we talk about solution X? Or are you free for a coffee? With this type of subject line, you might attract the wrong type of people with this approach, people who do not necessarily have the pain points that you are looking for. And instead, you need to focus on case studies and consideration, because that's what our user really want to see in their email, in your outreach. People are researching to make their company do better. And the more you can help them with their process, with their specific pain points, the more you will have successful conversation with them. So if you have enough value in the content of the conversation and how you can help them in the industries or their key consideration, you're going to drive home the value of why they should be talking to you and why they should be working with you, because you understand them. And they need to understand that you're not just trying to get a meeting and move on to the next prospect. You really want to help them. You really want to talk to them. And we can help you with this. We had a case a few weeks back. I think it was beginning of July. We work with the cloud provider inside sales team, and they send us a couple of emails they were using for their outreach. We did an audit of these 2 emails, and then we built a strategy of 4 to 5 emails. We edited some of their copy. We improved their subject lines. We also added a more powerful call to action to the email. And just like that, the open rate went from 9% to over 20%. So it's really important not to recycle old email and over again. It is an ongoing work. You need to keep making changes. You need to keep your marketing and sales outreach fresh to be successful. And you need to be prepared for the first conversation, because when you do get them on the phone, and it might take you 4, 5, 6, 10 touch before you get them on the phone. But when you do get them on the phone, you need to be prepared for that first conversation. And the first and the 2 top things that our users are telling us they want to be part of the first conversation with the vendor rep are the cost pricing model of the solution and an overview of the solution features. So now you have laid the groundwork. You have sent emails that show that you know them. You get them on the phone. You know their history. You need to be specific about your solution. You want to be prepared. You are not starting from scratch. They know a lot of things about you from all the emails that you've been sending them. And you might want to recap some of that detail, but they really show you that you are ready to have that conversation to help them and be ready to solve their pain points and support them in their research. What you don't want to do is to requalify all of their contact data. You don't want to do that, and you don't want to ask them right away to give you information about their project. That will come at a later stage. So on the right side, you can see some of the introduction that we recommend to start the conversation with the prospect. You can start with, we wanted to share with you how we've worked with another company in your space and to see if some of the benefits, the experience will be helpful for you. In this case, you reference another company, so maybe a competitor of them, maybe a partner. Another introduction will be, we help companies in your industry who have similar technology to yours already deployed to address the following problem. Would you have a few minutes to discuss how we might be able to assist you too? So you need to make sure that they understand from your email, from your phone call, that you are here to help. You are here for them. You don't want to just requalify all of their data from the first email. You want to show them you're here to help. And these are the things that we are doing with our customers. We are seeing results. Our customers are seeing results with this. But to be honest, none of our customers think they are 100% prepared. They don't have each and every one of these things nailed down. We are constantly working with them. We are building a successful strategy with them. It's a constant work, and just make sure that you ask your customer success manager to help, because we are here for that. Thank you.
Thanks, Lucy. I know we're coming up on the time, but anecdotally, we've in the past, we've had a lot of these senior IT panels hosted by Brian Glick, and every year the common theme came up where, someone would call them, a senior IT person, and expect them to tell them everything about their project and have this open conversation with someone that's just pretty much, a young person on the phone trying to bank qualify. It's just not, that approach actually does more harm than good. So I think using some of those tips that Lucy had is going to help. And you don't have to remember them all. We're going to follow up with this, Byron, you mentioned early on, this kit that showcases what we think are the best practices for digital marketing lead follow-up. So everyone will have that after, and that's something we hope you can read yourself, but feel free to pass on to any of your channel sales teams. So I know, Byron, I know there was a few questions that came in, but we're right up against it. So I don't know if there's one quick one or if we want to, just close out the day.
Yeah, I do have one more question that came from the audience for Simon, and I think we can wrap it up. It comes back to the white glove service, which is a very interesting topic that has come up. And the question, if vendors can build a white glove service with all that data, would they potentially look at that being a direct sale rather than indirect?
Well, it's really interesting, that question, because that was one of the main questions that the channel press had for HP when it started to talk to us about Amplify, because we said if the reseller is passing even more data about a customer to the vendor, and so the vendor, instead of just knowing the company logo and what they've bought, they start to really know about the strategy, where would that end up? Now, I guess this goes back to trust. HP said we would not take that information and cut the reseller out. This is so the reseller can deliver a better service. I think, to be honest, the answer to that is the age-old direct versus indirect. It always comes down to trust. And I think if I was a reseller and I was being encouraged to give more data about customers, I would want to just make absolutely sure I was happy with that vendor relationship. And so I would just say it's going to come down to trust. The vendors are making it sound like, hey, there's not a hidden agenda here. But I think the reseller you'd have to make a judgment call and say, I'm a top partner, I have been for years. I've sat down with them, or I've talked to them and I believe them. But yeah, trust is key there.